Welcome to the Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we have a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. Hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week we're going to be doing this a little more ASMR. Now, I'm not going to be tapping or scratching on anything, so don't worry about that, but I am going to be doing things a little more low-key. See, here's the thing. Come a little closer. I went to a concert this week, and the concert was fantastic. It was, in this moment, an Ice 9 Kills, as well as Avatar. It was really amazing. It was probably the first time I've gone to a metal concert in too long, but your captain went and did what he did best, which was yell a lot at people for making good music. And as a result, my voice is not terrible. But it is definitely something that I feel. So that plus the time that I'm recording, which is a little bit later, and given the new living circumstances, I just want you all to know that I'm now living with a new roommate. So I want to try and be respectful, given that this is a pretty late hour, mixed with recovering my voice. I am looking to keep this a little more low key. I've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of cool lore stuff that I'm going to be jumping into right away with Mike Chapman's comments on Twitter that came to us a couple weeks ago. But also there's some thoughts going around about the state of the game, as well as how we can see improvements in the future with some change-ups to how the game is actually developed. And then some little promotions that I wanted to let you know about towards the end to make sure that you're getting some content. And as always, just some general feelers out there for what I have been up to and some thoughts and stuff like that. So all that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They're the ones that went over to patreon.com/Keelhauled Podcast to sign up and support. You too can help out if you want. It's not necessary. And I definitely appreciate all the help that I do receive for this podcast. And by doing so, I like to thank the patrons by calling them out each episode. Now, if you want to join in on the episode at the end of the month, you're more than welcome to. That is open up to the captain tier. Those are the gold hoarders, and they do join us every month to make sure that their opinions and thoughts are heard. I love hearing from them and having conversation about the game with them. This month, I believe we are looking at, let me see if I can actually pull this up. There is going to be September 28th, Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 9 p.m. British Summer Time. That is going to be when that's going on. As always, Regis Stella will most likely be there at his normal time. But if anyone else wants to join us, I definitely appreciate it. It looks like right now we have Kylea, Rust Belt Kid, Evil Morpheus, Static Mirror, and Regis Stella set up to join us for that one. All are welcome who are in that tier, but if you can't make it, I totally understand. Just figured I'd let y'all know kind of what's going on with that right now. So with that, let's thank the patrons. Shout outs to A-Chick, Adorable, Toasties, L-Cute, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Longsharts, Chateau Noof, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cloud, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Fergatron, Godhammer 6, Jorby Jorbs, J Hood, Carl Embo, Kylea the Aficionado, Lumpy SRQ, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, which shout out to Mike. He actually reached out to me to see if I was playing Sea of Thieves and wanted to join them. Xbox Mike 29, who I recently saw, they didn't quite make it to the last Gold Hoarder episode, but I definitely saw that they were out having fun. So appreciate him letting me know that he's still doing good. Morpheus lives, or Murphy lives. Sorry, Morpheus. Murphy lives. Mutinous Max, Norwegian, Regis Stella, the Brony Pirate, Ribloid, Rust Belt Kid, Captain Dasm, Tommy D, TN Professor, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Captain J Rat of the Flaming Cold Sore, the Lore Chronologist Deadeye Dre, Hager Owl, Jeff H, Captain Duckweed, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, or Von Blitz, Luke Lore, the Insipid Ghost, and Zam. Wow. Thank you all so much for your love, for your support. Can't wait to talk to some of you in the upcoming Gold Hoarder episode. Again, everyone's more than welcome to join in if you're at that captain tier. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, always feel free to let me know. I can always see if I can help you out with any of that. Pirates, let's get into it. You ever have one of those interactions online where it spurs a huge conversation that you weren't expecting to have happen? Well, I had just that a couple weeks ago. I believe it was actually on just about a couple weeks ago on August 28th. I went on Twitter or X, depending on when you started checking out Twitter, and decided to respond to one of Mike Chapman, creative director's quote tweets that was kind of showcasing fight nights. Which, by the way, Fight Night's fantastic. They really need to go ahead and continue doing stuff like that. His quote tweet was, "Strike your colors, you bloomin' cockroaches. It's reputation we're after and a fortune in gold." Very innocuous, just promoting the Fight Night, which was the 31st through the 2nd. It was really nice. I know a lot of people really enjoyed the fact that you were going to be able to get increased allegiance and gold for every faction battle fought. If you're jumping into Hourglass, please, more of that. Fun fact, little story behind that later on. But I decided to take this moment because of recent podcasts and ask the question, Mike, what's up with the ancient skellies in the skeleton camps? And this is kind of where things went off the rails. See, I wasn't really expecting a response. I was just kind of assuming that I could toss out the question and see where it went, if anything at all. And Mike responded, the gentleman that he is, and says, "The ancient skeletons, the first of worthy ones to take the oath and blessing." Really interesting, because at that point it was kind of a way to indicate that they were the first ancients, the people, to become skeletons, to take on the skeleton curse. This sparked a lot of questions. The community saw this, they reacted, and I was actually kind of having a good time responding to this. So one of the other questions that I asked was, any idea how they managed to avoid moisture damage to all the scrolls given down there, given the water in the features and stuff? But that wasn't really the main question. Also, Deadeye Dre asked, why do they like orbs so much? And that was kind of fun because Mike said each prison's location is now comprised or compromised, and every prison needs a warden. Only the ancient skeletons and those unworthy were left behind after the crossing. That's, I gotta say, it's really interesting when you think about some of the lore in Sea of Thieves, because each prison's location is now compromised, meaning that Flameheart's forces have now gotten their way into these temples. Every prison needs a warden. Only the ancient skeletons and those unworthy were left behind after the crossing. The ancient skeletons, obviously the ones in the tombs, and the unworthy, the obsidian crews that are down in there when they spawn and come after you after you've taken the ritual or stopped it. It's kind of interesting when you have these little moments, bits of lore that come out of nowhere. So now we know that the skeleton camps are prison locations. They were compromised, and the ancient skeletons are the ones that were entrusted to stay behind to guard them. Deadeye Dre continued on this path, and granted, a lot of people ended up jumping in on this. So he says, so they just like using orbs as prisons. Mike responded, the first ones to find immortality in Sea of Thieves bound their souls to their bones. And so what's now seen as a curse was once a blessing. Guarding the orbs were one of their many duties. We now know how the skeleton curse came about. The ancients were playing around with magic and somehow managed to find immortality by binding their souls to their bones, creating skeletons, their souls attached to the skeletons. What is now seen as a curse was once a blessing, the blessing of immortality to turn into a skeleton, to forever be immortal. In Sea of Thieves, many objects are tied to very powerful artifacts or sources of power. The Sword of Souls was imbued with power. We don't really understand necessarily how that happened, but it has the power to release souls as well as imbue souls. And it makes me wonder if the corrupted flame of souls or sword of souls is a way that we're going to start being able to find out if Flameheart can move his body from one soul, his soul from one body to another body, potentially one that is alive. We don't necessarily know if that's the case, but we do know that there was a cure for this quote unquote curse, which was once a blessing. And it's very interesting to think about what would happen if Flameheart ever found this cure. Would he necessarily need the Sword of Souls to do that? And if he doesn't, what would happen if he did cure himself of being a skeleton and find Ramsey? I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I think Flameheart's idea of immortality supersedes his desire to ever become human again. The human again aspect of removing the curse of immortality or the blessing of immortality would effectively destroy his idea of pirates for all eternity. So needless to say, I think that's kind of a poor train of thought to follow. It's interesting to me that it may be something that he seeks, though, not necessarily to use, but potentially to destroy. As it is right now, the game allows us to fight for both factions, both allegiances. You have the Reapers and you have Athena's Fortune. You can obtain Ghost Curse and Skeleton Curse. They're not mutually exclusive. There's no reason for us to necessarily have to separate them. A lot of that is just kind of built into the idea of elongating the use of Hourglass as a game mode. The idea stands that if we ever wanted to role play, if we ever wanted to create our character, the story behind it, that we would take on a curse, and that curse would be something that is permanent. Not something I think too many people will ever really dive into. There's plenty of cosmetics in the game, and the cosmetics in the game, to be perfectly honest, are kind of the driving goal, aside from, little checkboxes on stuff. But the idea of obtaining the blessing from Flameheart and knowing that he was able to understand and find a way using the chalice to imbue people's souls to their bones is a little less elegant than potentially what the ancients did, given that we have to shed our mortal form and become a skeleton to be able to obtain this immortality in Sea of Thieves being an interesting thing, because for all intents and purposes, as long as the ferrymen will allow us to return to the Sea of the Damned, we are forever eternal. Kind of going along these lines, it was interesting to kind of take a look at some of the other questions that came up as a result, or some of the other tweets that came out from this lining. So the comment about each prison's location is now compromised and every prison needs a warden. Only the ancient skeletons and those unworthy were left behind after the crossing. Captain MacGuffin, Ancient Isles University representative, usually on Twitter, also from the Sea of Thieves Portugal community, says so maybe they were once, so maybe they were alive once before Flameheart's forces. Poor Louise. It's interesting to think about the whole idea of like Luis's story with Briggsy and how we never really got like a good resolution to that. It was all kind of like hand wavy when things happened. But it is interesting to see that there was a potential for where we could have seen where that storyline would have gone, what Briggsy would have done, what Luis would have uncovered. But Deadeye Dre responded to this as well and said, did they discover immortality before the Sea of Tribute? And I'm guessing it wasn't always a great thing to be bound to your bones. Like what happened to what happened with the Great Warrior, who basically became an emergency button, called upon in great need to be able to save the world. Not too unlike Austin Powers. And Mike actually responded to this, and I thought it was actually interesting to really dive into his comment on this, because he says, in a fantastical world, how do you save the ones you love? Step 1, Harness the innate magic to bind your soul to what's left of your physical form. Step 2. Commune with those you've lost with a death mask. Sound familiar? Step 3. Find a way to enter a world where you won't be parted. Sea of Tribute. I personally think the ancients explored multiple ways based on this to continue to live, to find that eternal route. It's one of those things that I think harkens to the story of the Fountain of Youth, eternal life, being able to live forever. If you're a person who strives to have a name for yourself, what better way than to live forever so that generations upon generations will know your name? Very much like the Reapers in this case, Flameheart in general. But for the ancients, it was a way to commune with their loved ones, to keep them present, to be able to see them forever. And it was very interesting to see that there was obviously a progression, like originally it kind of was to bind the soul to the physical form, even if all the physical form was bones, to use the veil of ancients as a death mask, to be able to see them, to communicate with them. Then last but not least, just being able to tear a rift in the fabric of space and time and enter into the Sea of the Damned or the Sea of Tribute and see them, to have their memories create a lasting paradise where they could live forever. Some people would call it heaven, whereas the Sea of the Damned could be a place of torment for those that are lost forever, trapped in their memories, or hell. And it's always kind of interesting to look and see how some of these kinds of tools are left behind for us to find, and that the information for them came out as a result of Mike's discussions on Twitter. So Deadeye Dre goes on after this and says, does the death mask go on the soul-bound body? Otherwise, why commune with those who have passed if they're just bound to them? It's a neat concept. I like poking holes. In a fantastical world, you could save those you love through the power of story in tall tales. Mike says, binding stops those living ever dying. Death mask to talk to those already lost. Getting into the Sea of Tribute as the ultimate way to ensure all is well. Very clear on this. I really love the comments. And I responded, is there a way to get to the Sea of Tribute from the Sea of the Damned? There's a reason I'm asking this, which, I'm trying to bait Mike into the conversation about this, but he says they are the one and the same. The Sea of the Damned is the pirate name for the Sea of Tribute. It's true. All of it is really just a matter of memories and perspective. So one of the questions that I had was, my thinking is, if we are able to take any of the orbs with us to the Sea of the Damned, if they can be used to relive other people's memories to create a physical place that was their Sea of Tribute. And the reason I asked this was because twofold. One, that I didn't really get into because Twitter doesn't always really leave for good conversations like this. It would be better done online or through an interview. But one of the ways that I wanted to kind of find out what was going on is if we were able to take some of these memories that are now trapped in the orbs to go to Flameheart's ship where the power can be used. Memories are a very powerful thing, and having ancient skeletons around affords us an opportunity to find out information about the ancients that we wouldn't necessarily be able to find in game. Granted, this is all from the perspective of pirates actually finding out this information on their own through the game, as opposed to necessarily having to talk to the creative director on Twitter. And the reason for it is because I'm looking for reasons for us to go to the Sea of Tribute. Now, necessarily what the Sea of Tribute would look like to a pirate wouldn't necessarily look like the Sea of Tribute to an ancient, hence the question. If we're able to harness the powers, the memories of the souls that are tied to ancient skeletons, bind them to a soul using a certain sword, or bind them to an orb using a certain sword, and able to use that orb, similar in the way that we actually had Ramsey use the Veil of Ancients and the stones therein to open up a portal to the Sea of the Damned. If we're able to take an orb and somehow get it to the Sea of the Damned, traveling through the tunnels of the damned, would we be able to go visit the memories or the Sea of Tribute for those ancient skeletons, what they would have seen? And if so, commune with more of the ancients on their Sea of Tribute, aka our Sea of the Damned, and find out more lore, find out more mysteries, more explanations, why the shrouded ghost is so hard to find, things like that. Why Salty the pirate has never ever been attempted to change back into a human, let alone a live human. So one of these things is possible. The other is I'm trying to work out how we can get other IP for other games or movies, books, what have you, into Tall Tales through the Sea of the Damned. And the concept there is we obviously have a lot of pirate like lore and history and other types of intellectual properties that we haven't been able to see in the game. The Tall Tales have done a fantastic job of explaining this through Monkey Island, but I'm also curious if things like the orb could be something that is tied to a physical object that allows you to, in the game, access them without necessarily needing to go through the rigmarole of adding an entire new camp to every outpost that affords us a new NPC to be able to escort us to a Tall Tale world that is kind of present, because things are a little cramped on most of the outposts. So I can't imagine that we are going to be running into any future Tall Tales that have people from the different IPs tied to outposts. I would imagine that those would be things that potentially they would either have to go and actually refresh outposts to afford more space for them, or we would have to rethink how we approach obtaining the right portal to the Sea of the Damned, aka Sea of Tribute, to experience Tall Tales in the way that they are currently done, but in a way that's more easier to kind of bring in different IPs. So I imagine that something will have to be done. We have kind of breached into the golden age of piracy, but there's still a lot of stuff that is still lingering on, and it remains to be seen whether or not Rare has the bandwidth or the time to be able to manage bringing a lot of new IP into the game, given how they've been very determined on focusing on keeping the games healthy and vibrant, bringing new tools, enriching the sandbox, and working on stability in the meantime. It's a very hard balance to make, and a lot of people, for the most part, don't really necessarily want to have new IP brought into Sea of Thieves. But it is hard to ignore the IPs that are out there that are still absent from Sea of Thieves. Given the nature of the Tall Tales from a pirate's life, eventually I would expect us to start getting closer and closer to the inevitability of having the captain come to the Sea of Thieves. And with that, we will probably start to see something closer in the form of Peter Pan. Now you may understand a little bit more about my reasoning behind some of the questions that I was asking, in the hopes that if we are to see an expansion to the Tall Tale system, which I hope we do in time, not right away, in time, we have a more elegant solution than what we currently have for the game, which is take an NPC, multiply them by the number of outposts, stick them next to a camp, put the camp on the outpost, and put a little box on the front end that indicates this is where you go for Tall Tales. I don't necessarily know the best way to do it, but I think that the orbs, or a system like the orbs, would be a powerful tool to be found in the game and see where we can go from that. Well, I think I want to talk about Fight Night. This August was really nice, I gotta say, from a player's perspective, from looking at what the devs can accomplish. I was very happy with what they managed to come out with this month, or this last month, I should say, which makes it all the sadder to realize that this month so far, we've seen no real indication that there's going to be anything going on. As it stands, looking at the special events, there's nothing but calm waters. Regular events are nowhere to be seen. And I feel like there's a missed opportunity here. Now, granted, I know that the dev team is hard at work. Season 14 is coming up. Looking at the current season, we still have 7 weeks, which is just under 2 months to be able to do so. And at the moment, I'm kind of hoping that we had something to do that was time limited. There's always something to do now. I'll tell you right now, most of my time on the seas have been spent working on gold vaults and guild commendations, which, looking at the current guild for our reputation, the Keelhauled captains, the gold hoarders of the community, we're up to 82 in Distinction 1. Now, granted, Weathered Buccaneers is handily beating us in grade 5, but we're at the point now where most of the Keelhauled crew, the original groups, are all playing in a guild outside of the patrons, which understandable given the nature of the patron guild, which kind of brings me to the guilds in general. But I think that may have to be another podcast episode, because at the moment I want to talk about regular nights. Having something to do on the weekends, having something to focus on is really fun. It's really nice to think like, okay, well, this weekend is going to be a gold hoarder weekend. So let's focus on going to do some of those vaults that need to get knocked out. Like at the moment, I have to still do, I believe, actually, I'm going to take a quick peek here. I am still stuck at 64 out of 100, which means I still need another 36 gold vaults opened, which isn't too bad. There's nothing telling me that I have to actually go and clear them out. I just need to get them opened. So that's something that I've been working on, and we'll hopefully have some success with that in the near future to be able to get that knocked out. Because once that's done, I'm going to be working on something for Order of Souls or Merchant Alliance. I still have some of those distinctions that I need to work through. In fact, I have most of the distinctions to work through for those. And something that I've really appreciated over the last, August, I guess, just full on August, was the ability to take some of the time that Rare had designated for some of the special events to focus on some of the stuff that ties closer to the actual factions that I need to work on. And given that this is something that I think many of us enjoy, it would be nice if Rare could take a look and see what exactly are some of the ways that they can invest time and energy into giving us community content or special events on a weekly or even bi-weekly cadence. I think it's important to keep focus where it can, allow us to have the events as a way to push us so that we can actually, have the commendations knocked out for the Burning Blade. That's obviously, key for selling a season, but that doesn't preclude us from still spending time going out and doing stuff on commendations or reputations that we like to play on the regular basis. Because at the end of the day, once the events are over, we all generally go back to whatever faction or reputation, trade company have you, that we enjoy. And sometimes we even ignore some of the world events that come out or things that can be done in game that are coming through the different seasons, and just accept that maybe this isn't what we want to work on right now. Maybe it's not necessarily the type of fun that we enjoy with Sea of Thieves. There's nothing wrong with that. So what I'm hoping will happen with Sea of Thieves is that Rare takes the opportunity, like they did with August, and start building out a more well-rounded plan. Something that can happen not just on each season, but also for the whole year. And this is something that I've seen with other companies do fairly well. World of Warcraft has a cycling system in their game that takes into account the different expansions that they've had and allows you to run that content at a level that's scaled back to the appropriate time to still kind of engender some of that sense of fear when playing through it, when you don't necessarily overpower all the content. With Sea of Thieves being a horizontal progression game, less of an opportunity, but the idea stands is that every couple of weeks there's a event running, and then they take about a week or two off, and then another event comes up, and that week or that event runs for a couple of weeks and focuses on something slightly different, but still relevant given how people are continuously grinding for gold, reputation, or commendations. Heck, some of you might even be out there still kind of working on captaincy stuff just for the fun of it. But at the end of the day, Sea of Thieves is kind of an open sandbox game. We're always willing to do or play whatever we want without necessarily needing any kind of guidance. That's what I would say most Sea of Thieves fans enjoy about the game is that nothing is really tying them down to play any certain way. You know, everything is a tool, and that tool will hammer the nail regardless of the type of tool it is. So I really hope that while we don't necessarily need to have these different events, it would be nice for Rare to add a bit of a guide, or at least a boost. Although I will say that one of the more ironic things that I noticed during Fight Night, which was tied directly towards Hourglass reputation, with the allegiance and the gold being bonused 2 times, which is fair, I think, and enough. I managed to get onto a server where not only was myself and my partner working on gold hoarders, but we noticed that there were 4 other ships running gold hoarder. And the irony there just seemed really funny to me, because it was like, of all the times that people should be running gold hoarder, a Fight Night where they push you to go do Hourglass was not what people wanted to do. Now, fast forward to this weekend, specifically today, went sailing, and funny enough, the entire time that we were sailing around, we noticed that there were Reapers everywhere. Everywhere we went, different servers, another Reaper. It was like that meme, like, and another one, and another one. And we kept trying to understand, like, what was going on. Like, what was the difference between this weekend versus the other weekend where it was actually Allegiance, and there were a lot of Reapers who could have been getting double gold and double reputation for their fighting. It's very weird. Needless to say, we ended up not really having to deal with the Reapers. It seems like there's been a lot of PvE Reapers in the latest, like in this season, which is interesting. And, you know, kudos and to, you know, everyone has their own reason for playing the way they want. But I found it really funny to see not too long ago, we were running into the situation where the Burning Blade was being ignored as an event, which was kind of a shame because it's the newest thing. And you would think that that would be something that a lot of people wanted to engage with. But now we're starting to notice that there are a lot of people who are still running Reaper, but more PvE than anything. And there's not really a whole lot of folks that are jumping at the chance to go fighting. Now, granted, I am just as guilty of not really going out and fighting that much as many of the other people, but at least I'm not running Reaper. I'm running gold hoarders. And if people want to come for my gold, they're more than welcome to. Good luck to those who can get it from me. But at the end of the day, it's consistently funny to me that the game is so well designed that it, even if they have bonus events, people are not going to run the bonus events. And if they do, then some folks will take advantage, but it's not a guaranteed, which is funny considering the number of ships on a server. So I've really enjoyed these. I really want them to continue. I understand that there's got to be a level of planning and things like that can shift. And one of the things that I've started to kind of poke at is the Sea of Thieves community for vetted community content creators. At the moment, it's been informative, but not necessarily something that has really afforded us too much headway on when some of the events are going to be coming. So I've reached out to kind of see on two parts. One, if the content that's coming can be given to the content creators that are vetted a little bit earlier so that we can kind of prep folks for that. So that way when things like Fight Night come up. We actually had an event that was Fortnite that was actually pretty fun because it was like double gold on any loot that was in a fort. Given that you can dive to those, a little less of a relevance now, but still a good way to kind of like drive some engagement. But I hope that something like these events can come back out, because I think that they're good ways to kind of like poke people to go do something that's outside the norm, which is just sail around, grab stuff, turn it in, let them focus in on certain things and get a little bit more of a bonus out of it. That doesn't necessarily like force you into a PvP only scenario, or maybe you do. Maybe that is exactly what they should be doing. But if they do that, then hopefully they'll be able to have some of the bugs that have been some of the biggest issues in the game taken care of, which is another thing that we should talk about. Sea of Thieves is having a bit of a rough go of it. The devs have been very outspoken about their desires to improve the current situation so that folks are not having a hard time on the seas. And recently, one of the biggest bugs that has really kind of endangered my enjoyment of an already hated mode, Hourglass, has hopefully been getting addressed sooner rather than later. Right now, there's a wave bug that has been affecting not only just galleons and sloops, but brigs as well. Everyone seems to be dealing with it. And what it does is it effectively ruins the water level for the emerging Hourglass ship. And because of this, a lot of folks are having a hard time hitting shots. Cannons are not aiming properly. Things just seem to be weird in general. And that kind of speaks to the general stability of the game, which I think is something that a lot of folks are always kind of poking Rare about. But in, I would say, maybe the last year has been something that's really tough. And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up is because Falcor actually put out a really nice video that was interesting to watch and definitely had some strong points. And that, you know, I will let you know, like, hey, if you haven't already, definitely go watch Falcor's videos. He puts a lot of time into them and they're generally well thought out. But one of the ideas is that Sea of Thieves is on the verge of hitting a point where they will have to do something about shifting the game over to Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5 is effectively got some tools in there that tend to unpack or stream assets a little bit smoother than Unreal Engine 4. And Sea of Thieves has been on Unreal Engine 4 for quite a while, but unfortunately, one of the patches that helped with some of the online downloading, streaming, packet asset stuff is something they had to hard code into the engine after the update came out. I won't say how I know that, but I know that. And it's kind of a bummer because it's something that really does kind of showcase the fact that Sea of Thieves is currently running on a very old engine. And granted, now that they have a handful of teams helping out with assets, tools, balance, bug fixes, support, you know, trailers, things like that, there's hopefully enough bandwidth that they can see about putting a team in to try and see if there's any opportunity for them to move Sea of Thieves over to Unreal Engine 5. We've already got DirectX 12 support, which is nice, especially with the newer graphics cards. Helps things look and feel a little bit better. But one of the things that we're hoping is that if there was an opportunity for Unreal Engine 5 to take advantage of hardware more efficiently, or perhaps even just benefit gamers that are on more current hardware, that the game stability would improve. Now, I'm not a developer and I don't pretend to be, nor do I think that I really have enough friends in the field to really be able to gauge any of this accurately. But if there's anything that can be done to help the stability of the game, just due to game crashes or judders, stuff like that, even tonight, earlier when I was catching B-roll for this week's episode, ran into not only just stuttering, like the standard kind of rubber banding that you would run into, but legit lag, like enter an action, wait a couple seconds, next thing you know, you actually happen. I really dislike this as someone who has spent a fairly decent amount of money on a new PC and meant much of that due to the support of the community, but still at the end of the day, a lot of it still came out of my own pocket, which was me kind of splurging on myself. Granted, this was, last year at this point. The system's almost a year old, but I did it because the system that I was playing on at the time that I got it back in 2017, Sea of Thieves wasn't out yet. And when Sea of Thieves came out, I could stream this game 60 FPS, 1080p, everything on Mythic. And it looked and felt great. The lack of content was not a problem for me because my system was able to play it beautifully. Fast forward 6 years, my little system could not handle it. It was having a hard time, even just not streaming, which brings me to the idea that Sea of Thieves, while it may not necessarily be impacted as heavily because of the Xbox One console, it still feels like at some point Sea of Thieves should try to move to newer hardware as a baseline, because at some point, even looking at how gamers are and whatnot, some of us will eventually be upgrading. And I can't imagine that the amount of content that is being played on older hardware has to be that big. I would say that even the Series S affords a lot of folks an opportunity to get into newer consoles, the current generation, at a decent price point, especially if you look on sales on Black Friday, where you were literally seeing the Series S allow people to get into the next gen consoles for $200. Now that we're starting to see rumors of the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S not necessarily going with the mid-gen refresh, but PlayStation is, it makes me wonder if Rare will actually start pushing towards using some of the better hardware and drop support for the Xbox and the Xbox One and the Xbox One S, as well as the Xbox One X. I know what that means for a lot of players, and I definitely understand. But at the moment, whatever is harming the health of the game is causing a lot of people to feel like Rare is not giving it the attention it really deserves, which should be priority one above content. Now, they recently addressed this in the Sea of Thieves news update, where they understand that they can still make content and work on improving the performance of the game without having to rely on just cutting teams from being able to work on new update content. All right, it's time to see if we can talk a little bit about the next item on today's docket, which is going to be something that is really worming its way into my heart. And I don't mean to be trolly about it, but I do want to let you know that there is an American promotion going on right now. This article comes to us from GuiltyEats.com. It is a post about Trolli and the Xbox team teaming up for the ultimate gamer candy experience. Thank you to Trey Weston on September 3rd, 2024. In recent years, they've done past events like this. This one is actually going to be dealing with Sea of Thieves, but also World of Warcraft, Diablo 4, and the Elder Scrolls Online. So right now, if you want, you can go out and actually purchase some of these Trolli worm packs. You'll want to look for some sort of Diablo 4, Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, or Sea of Thieves promotional material on them. And as far as I know, you just have to have the receipt for them. Thanks to A Chick for testing this out for me for a little bit. But if you do purchase multiple bags, make sure you get separate receipts for them. If you buy multiple bags and submit one receipt, they will not allow you to use that same receipt, even if you have purchased multiple bags for the promotion. After that, you'll just need to go over to trolli.com, TROLLI.com/Xbox, and upload that receipt. You will be given codes for each of the different games. And the big thing here for Sea of Thieves fans, as you may know, is the Obsidian Wheel. This is something that is very coveted and not exactly given out all the time. So let me see if I can find when the last time this was actually presented. So it came out first during the XO19 episode of Inside Xbox back on November 14th, 2019. Also when they announced Everwild, if you remember all the way back then. And all you had to do was log into the game to get that. It was then released later on by watching 20 minutes of Sea of Thieves time as a Twitch drop back on 2021 on June, and then June 26th on 2021. And then it could also be earned in December 18th on 2021 by watching Gossfather's Twitch channel through Twitch drops as well. I don't know if it necessarily needed to be his or if it was just any partner at the time, but this is something that is generally done through Twitch drops. And as you know, they tend to cycle those back in for special events. But if you're looking to forego the nebulous time frame of when this will be brought back to Twitch drops, given that it's been well over a few years at this point, you may want to go and try and take advantage of this trolley promotion. Now, myself being someone who's actually into Diablo 4, World of Warcraft, and Sea of Thieves, granted Elder Scrolls Online, another MMO, not necessarily needing to get into that, but still a good game. I was very interested in this, and I'll probably be picking up a pack or two for myself, as I have in the past with the Chips Ahoy promotions and other promotions that require codes, since I have access to this to try and help folks get those. I don't necessarily eat a lot of these gummy worm type candies, but I'm not opposed to them either. So if I can, I will. I myself don't need the obsidian wheel, so that's less of a concern for me. I did get the World of Warcraft gummy bobble worm. No, it wasn't actually a bobble worm. It was a worm though. That was like a World of Warcraft kind of worm, WYRM thing. And I didn't get the Diablo 4 one. So I'll probably be working towards that as well too. But I did want to let you all know about this since this is a time limited thing. I don't know necessarily when it's going to be ending, but I do know that the redemption for that is pretty much towards the end of the year. So if you do happen to get a code, chances are you'll be able to actually turn that code into the website for a certain amount of time. One of the things that you will want to know about is that it gives you separate codes for each of the different games that have to be redeemed through the respective stores. So Battle.net and Microsoft Store should be the main ways that you have to redeem those. As far as I know, they are only in the United States. So those of you in the States who have friends over in the UK or the EU or other territories, if you have the opportunity to get those codes, you may want to see if folks in other regions can actually claim them through the website and link their account to be able to do so. But at the end of the day, we'll have to do a little bit of trial and error to be able to find out how well this is going to work. We're still waiting to find out about that capstan though. I was thankful that a friend of mine had access to them back in the day, managed to get one and have used it ever since. Anytime anyone's ever asked me to stick that on, and they know that I have it. So I know a lot of us out there are trying to continue to complete that obsidian set. It is important to a lot of us that Rare kind of do the due diligence to make sure that these are brought through rotation, especially given that the PS5 players, very new to the game, have not had an opportunity, especially given that this wheel has not really been seen since earlier in the 2020s. So would love to see if they can actually bring this back in other forms, especially with Twitch drops, just to drive engagement for the streamers that are working towards partner or to Twitch partner, and let some of us have some of those tasty obsidians without the questionably tasty worms. All right, pirates, that's going to do it for this episode of the Keelhauled podcast. A little more low key. I'm doing this pretty late in the evening and I don't want to wake anyone up. So thank you all for listening. If you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, always feel free to let me know. I did actually get some reviews. So let me go ahead and see if I can look those up. And if I can, I actually want to see if I can give credit to the folks that actually did give me reviews over on Apple. That is kind of the main way that a lot of the reviews are coming in right now. Most folks are usually just doing the stars on Spotify. And since Google Podcasts is no more, it's harder for me to see reviews and stuff like that. So let me see if I can dig those up real quick. All right, got them here. The first one's actually going to be back in June. I don't even know if I got a chance to actually see this one, but I did want to let them know that I do appreciate seeing these. So I'm going to try and keep on top of the reviews a little bit better, just to make sure that folks are getting that recognition that I appreciate so much. So this one comes in from Goldman's Boat via Apple Podcasts in the United States back in June 11th. Hi, Logan. Love your podcast, and you actually inspired me to make a podcast. But I have a question. What podcast app do you use, and how do you start the podcast? I hope you answer this question next episode, but no pressure, so don't prioritize it. First off, let me apologize because I'm being a very bad podcaster right now. I always recommend going to anchor.fm. That is a great way to start a podcast. It's also a good app for actually listening to podcasts. Outside of that, I currently use Apple Podcasts, or Overcast is a good one as well too. Harder to say on Android since I don't have an Android phone. But I always recommend Spotify, since Spotify seems to be one of the biggest aggregates now, not only for music, but just for podcasts as well as other content too, like audiobooks. So Spotify would probably be first pick. After that, I would say Anchor, potentially Apple Podcasts, or Overcast if you're on iPhone. But yeah, Spotify probably the best way to go for that. Just like the experience there better, and it definitely still finds a lot of people through just general algorithms and stuff like that. So thanks for the question. Hopefully your podcast is going well, and that you're keeping up with the episodes. Next up, let's go ahead and bring up this one from Brog the Frog over in Great Britain. This was changed and then edited a little bit back in August and towards the end of August. It says, brilliant, 5 stars, brilliant Sea of Thieves podcast. Ever really talkative about stuff. It has helped me considerably through my Sea of Thieves journey. So thanks for making such a great podcast. Thank you so much for the review. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you are having a good time out on the seas, and that you are able to take some of the time for the podcast and just relax, enjoy the conversation. And if you ever want to be a part of it, again, always welcome folks over to the Discord. Great way to meet folks. I know Vibrolux, I think recently was trying to get help finding a way to do the Glitterbeard event, which requires 8 people. I know Chenzo was trying to help set up an actual like meetup for that. I've been really busy this weekend, so unfortunately I didn't get to help out the way I wanted to. I didn't even get to watch any of the HCS finals for Halo this weekend like I was hoping to with Caleb, because we will try to sit down and watch some matches in Halo, which is, I don't know if you guys ever like get the Mountain Dew and the Doritos and you sit down and you watch some old Halo esports nowadays, but it's fun. And I didn't get to this weekend. I was kind of bummed about that. So I'll have to make it up to him at some point in the future. But yeah, it was a really good time just to kind of like chill and relax with the podcast. And if you're on the Discord, it's great to see folks kind of chatting about things going on in Sea of Thieves in general, or even just whatever's going on. Like I know there's a really good group of folks that really love games like World of Warcraft or Diablo 4, especially Diablo 4. A lot of folks really enjoy that. I know like Captain Chunky lately has been posting a lot about his different ship types and stuff. So great to see some of that. I just recently got to frame my SOT comic that I got from Big Bad Pad this weekend. I still haven't hung it up because I need to plan out like a lot more of the frames in my bedroom now. But I'm glad that I got it framed. It's in a open frame type of double pane glass thing. So the front of it has like all the devs signed around the actual comic, and the back of it actually has all of the SOT Fest community members who signed the back of it. So it's really cool. I can actually like take it up off the hook if I need to and flip it around, show people all the awesome photo or all the awesome signatures that were gotten on there. So thanks to Big Bad Pat again for not only commissioning it, but also getting a lot of the rare devs and the SOT Fest team to sign it this year. It was, again, still one of the gifts, like the limited edition Legend of Zelda Switch OLED. Just it really got me emotional. just genuinely like tears coming down my face. Like, I can't believe the people that are just so awesome in this community. And I hope that that just spreads out to more folks. So definitely jump in the podcast Discord if you get an opportunity. Definitely have some fun in there. There's always some folks talking Xbox as well as like Nintendo. Not too many PlayStation fans now that I think about it. But then again, the PlayStation really only has like Astro Bot to really play lately. So not a whole lot really going on there. But at the end of the day, I hope everyone is having a good time, enjoying their summer as it kind of gets closer and closer to September 19th, which is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. And hopefully you guys are all looking forward to that. I really do hope that Rare has another event planned for that, because it's just a really good time. And also shout out to Regis Stella, who on the 8th, I believe, for him, which would have been the 7th for us of this month, it was his birthday, and he's now 26 years old. So he got an SOT cookbook as well as some One Piece manga, and just honestly really great to see him taking each day at a time. Very curious if he starts to jump in and start cooking some of those recipes in the SOT cookbook. I myself have recently started cooking at the ripe age of 42, and starting to actually get into my own cooking. And if it keeps going this way and I keep enjoying it, I may actually pick up the SOT cookbook and see if I can start actually cooking some of this stuff. Because now that I've got a little bit better handle on how to make timing work for different parts of the actual dinner, thank you, HelloFresh. Carrillo actually got me a promotional code for HelloFresh. So I've been doing some of that lately. Now that I have to, make meals myself instead of just cleaning all the time. And yeah, it's been interesting. So enjoying that, looking to round out more of my skills as a human being, so I can actually feed myself as opposed to just cooked, heat up pre-made meals. No, it's not Hungry Man. No, they're not like TV dinners. They're just stuff from Costco that's already done. And I'm not being as lazy anymore. I'm having fun with that. But anyway, this has gotten way off the rails and turned into just a giant advertisement for the Discord. There may also be I don't know how true it is, but there may be a lead on them making a sequel for the Goonies movie that may involve the original cast members to return. And we saw some promotional art that may or may not have been faked. A lot of this is hard to say, like, if it's real or not, because there's like sources that aren't explicitly like come out and said that, and the studios aren't saying anything. So it's hard to know, like, are they actually making a Goonies sequel or not? If they are, I'd be very curious to see how it turns out. I just recently got back from Beetlejuice yesterday. And after watching that, I was like, man, you get people who understand the assignment. And granted, Beetlejuice was Tim Burton and Danny Elfman coming back with a majority of the actual cast from the original Beetlejuice, and really tackled it with an earnestness to make something that is still very in the same vein as the original Beetlejuice. And I think they did a fantastic job. So even so far removed from the original movie, you can make a sequel that really does speak to the heart of what made the original so much fun. So I have high hopes that whoever's working on a Goonies 2 would come at it with that same approach and really try to instill that sense of what was great about the original Goonies movie, which was the fact that kids were going out on their own adventure during a time when parents weren't really paying attention to what their kids were doing. I guess. That's still a thing, right? Like, parents are too busy, inflation's high, so everyone's working a lot and kids are just doing their own things and being monitored by devices. So it's possible that kids just have as much leeway as we did when we were in our 80s and back in the 80s and 90s. So question mark, shrug. But regardless, if they do that, I look forward to it, because I think it'd be really, really cute to see like what the original cast is up to. If they come back, especially just that they're good people for the most part. Now, obviously some of them had some hard lives, but still that's being a child star at the end of the day. I've kind of gone off the rails on this at this point, but regardless to say, I hope you guys are having a good week. I look forward to talking to you all next week and hopefully seeing some of you on the Sea of Thieves. So with that, pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.